Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem of Pakistan.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. صدق الله العظيم.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Senator Muhammad Isaac Dar, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs of Pakistan, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good morning. I am Dr. Talat Shabir, and on behalf of Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, I formally welcome you to the 5th edition of Islamabad Conclave. The theme of Islamabad Conclave this year is Reimagining South Asia, Security, Economy, Climate, and Connectivity. Islamabad Conclave 2025 marks as 5th two-day annual event at the Institute. It presents the culmination of activities undertaken in 2025 by the 5 centers of excellence at the Institute. The conclave brings together national and international policymakers, academics, and thinkers from highest tiers. I welcome the participants who have joined us physically as well as through Zoom to exchange their views. I would now request Director General, Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, Ambassador Sohail Mahmood, for his remarks. Ambassador Sohail Mahmood.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable Senator Muhammad Ishaq Dar Sahab, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, Chairman BOG ISSI, dignitaries, excellencies, distinguished participants, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. It is indeed a distinct privilege for me to welcome everyone to the Institute of Strategic Studies for the 5th edition of Islamabad Conclave, our annual flagship event held every December. This edition is particularly special as we have both in-person and online participation of eminent speakers from several South Asian nations. We are honored to have Honorable Senator Muhammad Ishaq Dar, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Pakistan, as the chief guest. Given his vast experience in public life spanning over more than 4 decades and his pivotal position in the policy space, our participants stand to benefit hugely from his valuable views and perspectives. As a matter of fact, this year's theme of reimagining South Asia is inspired by what the DPM stated during his address at the ISSI Foundation Day event in June 2025. I thank you, sir, for gracing this occasion and for being a constant source of support and encouragement as the patron of the Institute. We also warmly welcome all the esteemed speakers from Pakistan and abroad and look forward to their enlightening thoughts and perspectives. Their insights will greatly enrich the conclave's deliberations. I also take this opportunity to reiterate our gratitude to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for its valuable support to the Institute, and particularly in holding this conclave. Our special thanks go to Foreign Secretary Amna Baloch, Additional Foreign Secretary Imran Siddiqui, and the heads of Pakistan missions in South Asia. Last but not the least, I express my sincere appreciation to the ISSI team for their tireless efforts in organizing the conclave. Like last year, we have a group of young university students as volunteers. Their contribution is also appreciated. Distinguished participants, established in June 1973, the ISSI is now in its 53rd year of existence. During this period, the Institute has evolved structurally as well as substantively. As part of the policy ecosystem, the Institute has consistently endeavored to provide research-based inputs and serve as a platform for informed dialogue on issues of policy relevance. Our 5 centers cover the globe, both geographically and thematically. The Institute's focus continues to grow on a vast array of subjects ranging from foreign policy and national security to strategic stability and the evolving global order, and from multilateralism and climate change to geoeconomics and soft power. In recent years, we have upscaled our research work in quantitative and qualitative terms, sharpened the thirst on bridging the gap between the research and policy communities, deepened interface with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, strengthened partnerships with regional and international counterparts, and expanded outreach to key national stakeholders, including the youth, civil society, and the private sector. Besides, the frequency of ISSI research faculty participating in international conferences and dialogue forums has increased significantly. The ISSI is today recognized as an established platform for Track 1.5 dialogues. In the research arena, we have already published 5 edited volumes and 2 special reports during 2025. The sixth book would be presented today to the Deputy Prime Minister on the Operation Banyanul Marsus of May 2025, an operation representing Pakistan's robust response to wanton aggression and a firm rejection of any attempt to establish new normals or, for that matter, regional hegemony. As for the next steps, the Institute will establish an Africa Corner in 2026, scale up its counterterrorism, CT research work, deepen collaboration with stakeholders on maritime security and blue economy, spotlight on Pakistan's contributions at the UN Security Council as elected member for the term 2025-26, strengthen engagement with next-gen international security and IR scholars, and work for the greening of the ISSI building. Our endeavors to influence and impact the policy process and to advance Pakistan's narrative on issues of core interest would continue apace. Distinguished participants, this year's thematic focus, Reimagining South Asia, Security, Economy, Climate, Connectivity, is well considered. Our region is at a critical juncture, shaped by profound shifts in regional and global dynamics. The world is witnessing a steady evaporation of the post Cold War unipolar moment and the emergence of a more complex and contested multipolarity. This transition is accompanied by intensifying major power competition, evolving alignments, and widening geopolitical fault lines. From Europe to the Middle East to Southeast Asia, regional orders are under strain. South Asia is no exception. Despite being home to nearly a quarter of humanity and holding immense potential for growth and connectivity, South Asia remains economically least integrated, politically fragmented, and institutionally impoverished. The persistent deficits in the realms of security, development, and regional architecture seriously constrain South Asia from achieving its full potential and playing a more prominent role globally. More often than not, it grabs international headlines on account of regional tensions, political upheavals, intra and interstate conflicts, unresolved disputes, transnational terrorism, border clashes, and natural disasters. The perennial issues of poverty, illiteracy, disease, and devastating impact of climate change make the task even more daunting. There is, however, no reason why this dismal state of affairs should perpetuate. It is within our agency to break the past pattern and construct a new edifice. The opportunities include a multipolarizing world, more self assured nations in the region, energetic, enterprising, and assertive young populations in each of our countries, and international partners willing to support our national development goals and regional priorities. What we need is to visualize new possibilities and alternative futures. To be sure, unlocking South Asia's immense potential demands a shift from confrontation to cooperation and from zero sum thinking to win win approaches. It requires going beyond the traditional conceptions of security, respecting each other's sovereignty, building mutual trust, creating new economic synergies, promoting hard and soft connectivity, and rethinking regional cooperation architecture. This conclave encourages exactly such a reimagining, grounded in new ideas, collaborative thinking, and future oriented strategies. The conclave's theme impels us to view our collective challenges from a cooperative rather than a competitive lens and to come up with solutions that work for all, not those that narrowly benefit some. Without losing sight of the existing realities, it urges us to be bold and ambitious in considering ways of changing the reality for the better. I am sure with an outstanding group of practitioners and scholars present here, we have what it takes to reimagine South Asia for our collective good. We anticipate a feast of ideas, stimulating discussions, and practical recommendations for policymakers. As I conclude, I once again express my profound thanks to the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, all the distinguished speakers and participants, and the wider ISSI community. Your contributions remain central to the success of this conclave. I thank you and wish very fruitful deliberations over the next 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Sohail Mahmood. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I will now request Chief Guest of today's inaugural session, Honorable Senator Muhammad Ishaq Dar, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, for his inaugural address. Senator Muhammad Ishaq Dar.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmadu wa nusalli ala Rasul al-Kareem. Ambassador Khalid Mahmood Saab, Chairman Board of Governor, ISSI. Ambassador Sohail Mahmood, Director General, ISSI. Members of the Board of Governors, ISSI. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. It is indeed a privilege to inaugurate the Islamabad Conclave 2025, the flagship dialogue forum of the Institute of Strategic Studies Islamabad, now making its 5th edition. I congratulate the ISSI, its board and team, and its research faculty in organizing this conclave, and welcome the scholars, academics, practitioners, speakers from Pakistan and the region. I look forward to your perspective on South Asia. Addressing the ISSI's Foundation Day event in June, as just indicated by Honorable Mr. Sohail Mahmood, I underlined the need to reimagine regional cooperation in South Asia and beyond. Given the region's multiple challenges and the dysfunctionality of the sole platform for regional cooperation, I'm glad that the Institute has organized this year's conclave on reimagining South Asia, security, economy, climate connectivity, which is both pertinent and timely. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the global environment continues to be marked by flux, polarization, and fragmentation. Traditional and non-traditional security challenges coexist. Conflicts in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, as well as regional crises, including Israel's genocidal military onslaught on Palestinians in Gaza, represent some of the darkest chapters of recent times. Even in our own region, the 92 hours Indo-Pakistan war had the potential to escalate to far more dangerous levels. All this is of a large malice in which states have increasingly resorted to the use of force to settle disputes, with disregard for international law and the purpose and the principles of the UN Charter. Multilateralism is under assault, and the institutions of global governance are often criticized for the acts of omission and commission of a few states driven by unilateralist impulses. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change remains an existential threat. Rising temperatures, extreme weather events, and accelerated glacial melting affect water resources, agriculture, and livelihoods worldwide. Emerging technologies, transnational terrorism, and hybrid warfare, including misinformation campaigns, continue to challenge the stability. The rise of extremist ideologies, political populism, democratic backsliding, and Islamophobia are negatively impacting the globe and causing upheavals in unprecedented ways. Major power competition is a defining feature of our times. Global geostrategic and geoeconomic landscape is being fundamentally reshaped. Military, technology, trade, tariff, and resource rivalries are intensifying. This extreme turbulence is taking place as the world moves towards a multipolar order with strategic autonomy among some major powers, the increasing role of middle powers, and the growing agencies of the global south. The process, however, has not yet reached the culmination point. In this evolving environment, Pakistan has a clear and consistent vision, one that seeks a just, equitable, and inclusive world order. We have opposed bloc politics and zero-sum approaches and consistently stressed the imperative of cooperation rather than confrontation. Pakistan has steadfastly championed UN-centered multilateralism based on international law, the UN Charter, and reformed multilateral institutions. We have underscored the indispensability of dialogue and diplomacy, of peaceful settlement of disputes, and of international cooperation and solidarity. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as an elected member of the UN Security Council for the term 2025-2026, Pakistan is engaged in vanguard efforts to promote international peace and security. Driven by this vision, during our presidency in July, I presided over Security Council that adopted a landmark resolution after many years through consensus, and a presidential statement was adopted upholding multilateralism, respect for the Charter, and effective implementation of the Council resolutions. Ladies and gentlemen, South Asia is home to more than 25% of the global population. It faces poverty, inequality, and development challenges, including illiteracy, disease, malnutrition, income disparities, food insecurity, natural disasters, and the impacts of climate change. The region fares terribly low on most human development indices. South Asia also remains poorly integrated economically, with intra-regional trade hovering around 5%. The region is energy deficient and heavily dependent on oil and gas imports. Regional connectivity is woefully inadequate. SAARC, the only region-wide platform for regional economic cooperation, has largely remained inactive for over a decade. Ladies and gentlemen, we must also consider the pressing challenges of climate and food security in our region. South Asia's climate challenges are intensifying. We are just seeing what's happening in the South Asia right now. The region is home to over 25,000 glaciers in the Karakoram Himalaya range, whose accelerated melting threatens water security, agriculture, and livelihoods. Extreme weather events, including floods, droughts, and heat waves, affect millions and exacerbate food insecurity. Regional cooperation in water management, climate adaptation, and resilient agriculture practices is absolutely essential. Investment in renewable energy, climate smart farming, and disaster preparedness will be critical for sustainable development and building resilient communities across the South Asia. Distinguished guests, the security landscape adds further complexity. In the context of hard security, the environment is even more complex. The region comprises three geographically contiguous nuclear powers with complicated relationships. Major regional states boast of some of the largest armed forces in the world. There is a continuous buildup of conventional and nuclear arms and regular induction of destabilizing weapons system. Strategic stability is delicate, among other things, by some dangerously ill-conceived war-fighting notions in the nuclearized environment. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, over the past 78 years, sustainable peace has eluded South Asia as it has faced wars, near-war situations, civil wars, instances of foreign military intervention, forcible and illegal occupation, transnational terrorism, extraterritorial killings and assassinations, ethnic strife, and political instability. There are escalating disputes over resource sharing, particularly on river waters, as exemplified by India's illegal and unilateral announcement on the Indus Water Treaty. The phenomena of over-securitization continues to grow, entailing weaponization of trade, water, sports, and cultural exchanges. There are pervasive interstate differences and some of the long-standing unresolved political disputes like Jammu and Kashmir continue to threaten the peace and stability in the region. There are weak or non-existent regional institutions, especially in the realm of conflict management and dispute resolution. Structured dialogue process between India and Pakistan remains stalled for over 11 years. Other South Asian states have had their share of the seesaw relationship with our neighbor India. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, burden of history, trust deficit, impulses of dominance and hegemony, domestic political and electoral calculations, rise of populism and hyper-nationalism, and an ideological inclination for territorial expansionism add multiple layers of complexity to the regional landscape. Above all, the region is becoming a locale for major power contestation. On one hand, the US-led the Indo-Pacific construct strategy aimed at China's containment assigned the role of a net security provider to one state in the region, and on the other hand, China's Belt and Road Initiative and global development and global governance initiatives were opposed despite their clear focus on economic development and connectivity. The friction resulting from this dichotomous situation impacts the regional states' efforts for peace and development. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in May 2025, as I earlier mentioned, the region witnessed yet another India-Pakistan crisis. There are two nuclear-capable countries involved in a conflagration that would have gone into uncontrollable escalation. The US played a crucial role in brokering a timely ceasefire, while the hostilities ceased. An uneasy and fragile peace persists. Pakistan demonstrated both in resolve and capability to thwart aggression and reinforce deterrence. The concept of net security provider is buried. Sustainable peace in South Asia, however, requires more than maintaining strategic stability. Above all else, a just and lasting solution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute remains indispensable. Ladies and gentlemen, it is often said that the end of Cold War largely bypassed South Asia, leaving the region with few peace dividends. We, the South Asians, need to think really hard. Are we doomed to remain mired in confrontation and conflict, while others' regions progress and prosper? The answer should be a clear no. The cumulative challenges of regional security, economic fragility, and climate crisis are simply too grave to disregard. It should be also very clear that these challenges cannot be effectively tackled in an environment of political fragmentation and fractured regional architecture. There is indeed a need to reimagine South Asia and identify pathways to the peace, progress, and prosperity that our peoples so deeply yearn for and richly deserve. To begin with, we must overcome zero-sum mindsets, foster an environment of dialogue, peaceful coexistence, economic interdependence, and win-win cooperation. It is equally essential to build an edifice grounded firmly in the principles of open and inclusive regionalism. Short of that, I don't think there is any solution. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, creating a conducive environment and establishing the requisite regional architecture to address the security and development deficits is absolutely imperative. Artificial obstacles created in the ways of SAARC, which remains our first choice as an instrument of regional cooperation, must be removed and organization be enabled to start refunctioning. Earlier this year, Bangladesh, China, and Pakistan established a trilateral mechanism to foster mutual collaboration in areas of common interest. This concept can be expanded and replicated. As I have said before, there could be groups with variable geometry on issues from economy to technology to connectivity. Our own national development needs and regional priorities cannot, I repeat, our own national development needs and regional priorities cannot and should not be held hostage to anyone's rigidity. And you know where I'm referring to. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan envisions a South Asia where connectivity replaces divisions, economies grow in synergy, disputes are resolved peacefully in accordance with the international legitimacy, and where peace is maintained with dignity and honor. We remain ready to work with all willing partners to help South Asia realize its immense potential. I have no doubt that our region too shall see the day, inshallah, when we will match the levels of economic integration and growth rates of the regions that we see with so much envy today. Distinguished participants, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, finally, I wish you all the very productive and insightful discussions over the 2 days conclave. May your deliberation lay the intellectual foundations for the much needed reimagining of South Asia, which can be translated into practical policy recommendations. I once again thank the chairman, board of governors, the director general, whom perhaps maybe in few weeks we will see discharging a global and international responsibility on behalf of Pakistan. So we wish him well in advance in case if we don't have any such event again. In the next few weeks, he'll be assuming his new responsibility from 1st of January. I'm keenly looking forward to find a better, if not better, at least an equally competent, his successor to run this institute the way it has been run since its inception. I thank you all and thanks for your patience listening. Thank you very much. Pakistan Zindabad.
Thank you, Senator Isaac Dor, Deputy Prime Minister, for your inaugural speech. Nakash, if you can remove this table, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I would request Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, Chairman, Board of Governors, Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, Ambassador Sohail Mahmood, Director General of Institute of Strategic Studies, to present Institute's latest publication titled Operation Banyan Mahsus, Deterrence, Doctrinal Shift, and Strategic Stability in South Asia, to the Chief Guest. Okay. May I also request Chairman, Board of Governors, and Director General ISI to present Institute's memento to the Chief Guest. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we conclude the inaugural session of Islamabad Conclave 2025. We extend our sincere gratitude to our chief guests, speakers, and participants for their valuable presence. Please join us for tea at the back. Thank you, sir. There'll be a group photo, please. I just forgot. There'll be a group photo with speakers and panelists with the chief guest. All the panelists and speakers may join for the group photo.
Hello, mic check, hello. Hello. Hello, mic check. Hello, mic check, hello. Hello, mic check. Hello, hello, mic check. Hello, hello. Hello, mic check. Hello, hello. Hello, mic check. Hello, hello. Hello, mic check. Hello. Hello, mic check. Hello.
Ladies and gentlemen, kindly settle down. We are beginning with our first working session. I request the chair and the keynote to please come to the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down. Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start this first working session of the Islamabad Conclave. I request General Zubair Mahmood Hayat to please come on the stage. Dr. Shilata Pokhrel, Ambassador Zamir Akram, no worries, no worries. Ambassador Zamir Akram, Ambassador Imran Ahmed Siddiqui. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a Chinese speaker who have joined us online, Professor Huang Yong-Sing, Associate Dean at the School of International Studies at Sichuan University. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of India Study Center, I welcome you all at the Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. Well, you had a very brilliant session in the inaugural session where we had a very comprehensive speech by the chief guest, which actually set the stage for the successive sessions today. In this session, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to discuss about the evolving situation at the global level and how it would impact the South Asian regional security architecture. Ladies and gentlemen, as you are well aware, this is the moment of profound structural change at international system. We are witnessing an international system which is defined by major powers contestation. Then there is a fragmentation of the traditional rivalries and emergence of hybrid geopolitical alignments. The post-Cold War assumption of a US-led global order has steadily been eroded. In this context, ladies and gentlemen, this international system in which we are right now is primarily fluid, contested, and decentralized. There are several competitors for US that are emerging. For example, rising China. Then there is a resurgent Russia, and of course, ever-increasing influential middle powers as well. In this context, ladies and gentlemen, South Asia, which has also several internal issues as well, such as the geopolitical rivalries, the fragile political transitions, and developmental challenges. But at international level, it will have a profound impact of the transformations that are taking place globally on South Asia. Although there are many issues to discuss related to the South Asian regional security order, but primarily in this session, we will be focusing on three main factors. First, the renewed major powers' interest in South Asian region. We know that there is a renewed strategic attention of major powers towards South Asia. There are defense diplomacy going on, then infrastructure financing, counterterrorism, intelligence sharing, maritime security frameworks are there, where the external factors are trying to increase their institutional footprint in South Asia. We also see that there is a return of the US in this South Asian region after a brief withdrawal from Afghanistan. The Trump administration, ladies and gentlemen, looks at South Asia and Central Asia as extended region for its own geopolitical and geostrategic interests. China, on the other hand, is primarily a factor of stability for South Asian region. It has pledged to invest more than $90 billion in South Asian region under the BRI. Of course, China-Pakistan economic corridor will have a major chunk out of it. In this session, we will be looking at how the G2, primarily US and China, view South Asia for their geostrategic and geoeconomic interests. The second important point, ladies and gentlemen, is about the new choices that are emerging for the smaller South Asian states. We know that historically, India was considering smaller South Asian states as its primary sphere of influence, or what we call the strategic backyard. But today, we have seen that there are more choices emerging for smaller South Asian states in South Asia. Rising China, which has a political as well as economic clout, as well as middle powers who can also get involved in South Asian politics. So we are lucky to have a Nepali scholar with us who will educate us that what are the foreign policy choices the smaller South Asian states have, and whether they can maintain their strategic autonomy while getting their national interests secured. The third, ladies and gentlemen, point is about the fragmentation of regionalism in South Asia. We know that although there are global transformations taking place, but whether South Asia is ready to adapt to those global transformations, or whether there is a more fragility within the South Asian region. SAARC remains paralyzed for almost a decade right now. India, unfortunately, trying to empower BIMSTEC and project it as a replacement of SAARC. But unfortunately, or fortunately, BIMSTEC is not a good, and does not have a potential to replace SAARC. And I will come towards Ambassador Siddiqui for this question as well. There is a significant geopolitical rivalry going on within South Asia. So in this context, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very important question here. Whether the South Asian countries genuinely believe or will be able to construct a regional security order, or will there be an issue-based alliance cooperation at the bilateral level? Or there might be some kind of a minilateral arrangement, as we have recently seen between Pakistan, China, and Bangladesh. So these are the few areas where we will touch upon in this session. We are lucky to have a diverse panel with us. We will start with the keynote speaker, General Zubair Mahmood Hayat, Nishan-e-Imtiaz Military, Hilal-e-Imtiaz Military. He served as a chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff Committee. He has held several pivotal command and staff roles. His career includes serving as Corps Commander Bahawalpur, GOC Sialkot, and leading the Staff Duties Directorate. General Hayat also directed Pakistan's Strategic Plans Division. He later served as Chief of General Staff, overseeing core military operations and planning. So I invite General Zubair Mahmood Hayat for his keynote address.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Thank you, IWSI, for inviting me for this keynote address. Distinguished guests, almost all of them I know by face and by name. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good afternoon. It's a privilege to be with you today to discuss a subject that is not merely a matter of geopolitical analysis, but I find it as a profound philosophical inquiry into the nature of power, sovereignty, and order in one of the world's most dynamic and I feel consequential regions. We gather at a moment of historic transition. The post-Cold War unipolar moment, a brief period of American preponderance, is quickly receding into memory. In its place, a more new, complex, and a contested, fluid multipolarity or bipolarity is taking place. Probably, as mentioned, the G2 is probably the new strategic reality. But this is not a simple return to the 19th century concert of powers, but a 21st century phenomena. Accelerated by digital independence, climate crisis, and the reassertion of civilizational states. And nowhere are the stakes of this transition higher and the dynamics more intricate than in South Asia. Today, I wish to explore the evolution of South Asia's regional security order, and amidst this evolution, multipolarity, not through the lens of just strategy, but through a philosophical reflection on what order itself means in such a context. Let me begin with the foundational truth. Except for brief periods, South Asia has never been a truly self-contained autonomous security system. For centuries, its fate has been intertwined with external powers. The colonial experience subjugated its security to imperial interests. The Cold War saw it become a bloody chessboard for the US-Soviet rivalry. The region was in many ways an object of international politics rather than a subject shaping its own destiny. The unipolar era offered a very brief but deceptive simplicity. A single dominant external power providing a certain, albeit an imperfect, reference point. But today the region is the cockpit where multiple overlapping global orders are colliding. Let me lay out three such orders. First is the established United States. Its strategy has pivoted from war on terror to a definitive strategic competition with China. For Washington, South Asia is no longer just about Afghanistan or counterterrorism. It is the western flank of the Indo-Pacific or a critical theater for balancing Chinese power. This is embodied in their concept of Quad, although not very favorite at this moment, and its deepening strategic ties with India, notwithstanding the current small hiccups. And in a flirtatious but transactional relationship with Pakistan. Second is the ascending power, China. Beijing's entry into the South Asia security is neither coincidental nor merely diplomatic. It is an infrastructural, economic, and military. The BRI, particularly the Chinese-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is just not an economic project alone. It is a profound geopolitical move, a strategy of shared destiny to project soft power, secure grand strategic depth, and reorientate the region's economic and ultimate political center of gravity. It represents a vision of order based on a shared destiny with probably China at its center. The third, there is this resident and an aspirational power, India. So these are the three orders. For India, multipolarity is not a global abstraction. It is, in their view, a regional imperative. It represents, in their view, a long-awaited opportunity to shed the constraints of the past and asserts its absolute primacy in its own neighborhood. India's claimed vision is one of strategic autonomy, where it is the principal security provider or the net security provider as it wishes to define itself, and the economic hub of Akhand Bharat. It views Chinese inroads and American demands for alignment with deep suspicion, seeing both as a potential limitations on its own grandiose, grand strategic ambitions. Delusional as it may be, This RSS Hindutva worldview is shaped by these ambitions. So we have three distinct orders: the Americas allied balancing, China's shared destiny integration, and India's regional primacy anchored on Akhand Bharat. These visions are not compatible. They generate what philosophers might call as an anatomy of conflict of seemingly rational but irreconcilable principles. This brings me to the central philosophical tension at the heart of our discussion today. That is the paradox of sovereignty in a multipolar world. For smaller states, as mentioned by Dr. Khurram, like Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Bhutan, this multipolarity represents a strategic opportunity they have not enjoyed in centuries. They are no longer trapped in a binary choices between India and a distant superpower. Now they can play the field. They can leverage Chinese investment against India's influence and America's diplomatic support against both. This is a classic hedging strategy. It maximizes their agency, their bargaining power, and their access to resources. From a philosophical point of view, it represents an assertion of their Westphalian sovereignty, their right as an independent nation to choose their own partners. But, and this is the critical but, this very act of asserting sovereignty through hedging may ultimately undermine the very foundation of their sovereignty. Why? Because this dynamic draws external powers deeper into their regional's internal fissures. It turns local disputes into proxy contests. It creates dependence that can compromise foreign policy independence. The very act of playing the great powers against each other risks turning South Asia into a battlefield, a place where United States contains China and China engages India, all through the medium of small and vulnerable states. In seeking to escape one form of dominance, they risk enmeshing themselves in a more complex and potentially more volatile structure of dependency. This is the core paradox. The multipolar system, the agency of smaller states increases, but so does their potential for instrumentalization. Their sovereignty is both amplified and endangered by the very same process. Nowhere is this danger more acute than in the relationship between India and Pakistan. The perennial conflict is no longer a closed bilateral affair. It is now a nested game with larger US-China rivalry. Pakistan's all-weather friendship with China provides it a strategic comfort that strengthens its position in South Asia. For India, this transforms a regional rivalry into a front line of its confrontation with China, making the security calculus infinitely more complex and dangerous in our view. The philosophical question we must ask is, can a stable security order be built on such a foundation of conflicting visions and exploited paradoxes? Can it be? I would argue that the traditional concept of security, implying a settled hierarchy, clear rules, and predictable enforcement, is a mirage in the contemporary South Asia. What is emerging instead is a competitive order, or perhaps more accurately, a managed disorder. It is a system characterized not by stability, but by the precarious equilibrium maintained by two things. One, deterrence, and other dialogue. First, the deterrence. The nuclear umbrella over India and Pakistan creates a hard ceiling. That's a hard fact. However fragile, against a total war. Simultaneously, India's conventional military buildup and its forward posture creates an uneasy balance against the Chinese along the Himalayas. This complex layered deterrence is the bedrock that prevents the competitive order from collapsing into chaos. Now the dialogue. Despite the profound distrust, lines of communications, they persist. The Indus Water Treaty, for all its strains and being held in abeyance, survives. Back-channel diplomacy flickers, but provides a potential symbolic space for engagement. This dialogue is not about building friendships, but about managing the inevitable friction. So what is the path forward? How do we navigate and manage disorder towards something more resilient, more just, and more peaceful? The strategic answer must be as multifaceted as the challenge itself. First, the external powers like US, China, and Russia, it requires strategic restraint and a commitment to inclusive regionalism. Pouring arms into the region or striking exclusive deals may yield short-term advantage, but it fuels the long-term fires of instability in South Asia. The goal should be to strengthen the region's own capacity for problem solving and not to make it a permanent dependent region. Second, and for me that is very important, for India, the challenge is one of statecraft. For India, the challenge is one of statecraft. Its path to possible leadership cannot be based on coercion alone. It must offer a positive vision for the region, which other states in South Asia can relate to. This means going beyond security concerns to become an engine of shared prosperity, connectivity, and trade, not within philosophical or regional or ideological domains. It must reassure its neighbors. This may be a bitter pill for the RSS. But then India has to make that strategic choice. And third, for smaller states, the task is to master the art of nuanced hedging. This means leveraging multipolarity for economic gains without surrendering strategic autonomy, at least to an extent. It requires investing in our own institutional resilience so they are not hollowed out by external influences. Their foreign policy must be one of sophisticated balance, not of desperate oscillation. And finally, for all, we must resurrect a forgotten vocabulary, that of common security. In the face of non-traditional existential threats, climate change, water scarcity, pandemics, and cyber anarchy, the zero-sum logic of 19th century geopolitics is a suicide pact. The melting glaciers of Himalayas do not care about the line of control. A pandemic will not stop at a border checkpoint. The toxic cloud hovering over the northern South Asia is a regional common. These shared vulnerabilities represent the most compelling and perhaps unfortunately the only possible foundation of any new order. It is in the humble practical work of monitoring rivers, coordinating disaster response, and securing public health that trust can be built, possibly brick by brick. This is not idealism. It is probably the most profound realism. But our leaders like Modi, Yogi, Amit Shah and Ajit Doval under RSS watch, capable of making this strategic transition a tall and maybe an illusionary order. The evolving multipolarity in South Asia has shattered the old imposed order, but has not as yet given birth to a new one. We are in a turbulent, creative, and dangerous times. The region stands at crossroads between becoming an arena for the great power conflict or forging a unique, pluralistic, and resilient security community. The choice will not be made by fate, but the conscious decisions of leaders in the capitals from Washington and Beijing to Delhi, Islamabad, and Dhaka. It will depend on the wisdom to see beyond the immediate tactical gains, their courage to embrace restraint, and the vision to recognize that in an interconnected world, true security can never be achieved alone. It certainly can never be imposed. You can neither fight your way to security nor buy it off the shelf. It must be built patiently and together. But that's not what is happening in South Asia. India's pursuit of Akhand Bharat, once dismissed as an ideological nostalgia, has now mutated into a strategic obsession, shaping its statecraft and security posture. What began as a mythical longing for civilizational unity has become an instrument of power projection, revisionism, and territorial imagination. This dream, dressed as cultural grandeur, cloaks as an unsettling reality that India's rise is increasingly built on the assertion of dominance rather than coexistence. And history has shown us that nations driven by civilizational myths often lose the prudence of balance, mistaking ideological expansion for destiny. When vision turns into fixation, reason yields to zeal. The nations they walk blindfold into peril. The pursuit of such hegemonic dreams by India in a nuclearized South Asia does not create security, it destroys it. The doctrine of dominance inherently breeds reaction. Pakistan and China, both direct stakeholders in the regional balance, will never allow an Indian imperium to emerge unchallenged. As rhetoric hardens into doctrine and the borders blur in rhetorics and maps, unfortunately, deterrence comes under stress. Nuclear thresholds are not lines on paper. They are psychological tripwires. Once ideology seeps into strategy and faith replaces logic in decision-making, those tripwires begin to fade. This is what is happening in the RSS-driven Hindu Rashtra. South Asia then becomes not merely a zone of contest, but a theater of permanent instability, a tinderbox washed over only by warheads. This is not alarmism. It is the sobering recognition that the storm clouds are real. The growing fusion of Hindu nationalism, technological militarism, and revisionist philosophy is altering the mental geography of an entire subcontinent. In a world already fraying under polar rivalries, South Asia stands at the interaction of ideology and annihilation. Wisdom demands awareness, vigilance, and restraint. But if delusion continues to portray as destiny, the region may soon stand at the edge of an abyss from which no rhetoric, no mythology, and more importantly, no power will be able to pull it back. Be aware, be alert. The danger is not coming. It is already here. Strive for the best, but be prepared for the worst. I thank you.
Thank you so much, General Zubair Mahmood Hayat, for such a thought-provoking speech. He has mentioned about the three-tier regional security order, the two Ds, states relationship, the absence of strategic flexibility from the India's side, and of course, the strategic comfort that Pakistan has from the Beijing. But the most powerful words that I really loved when he said that the true security cannot be achieved alone, nor it can be imposed. So these were quite powerful words, and I'm sure you will have several questions during the Q&A session for him as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we have four eminent speakers with us. Three of them have joined us in person, while the Chinese speaker have joined us online. We have already shared questions with them for their speeches. The time allocated for each of them is 10 minutes. So I would request all of them to please should complete your speeches within that allocated time so that we could have a more interactive discussion. Our first speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Dr. Shilata Pokhrel, who is a Nepal-based scholar of energy security, climate resilience, and South Asia's geostrategic affairs. She earned PhD from University of Punjab, Lahore, and teaches at Tribhuvan University at Kathmandu. Dr. Shilata, you have the floor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. After such insightful insightful thought from sir about the small states, I'm going to discuss about the foreign policy of smaller South Asian states. Basically, smaller South Asian states are using the non-alignment policy for safeguarding sovereignty, territorial integrity, independence, and promoting economic well-being and prosperity. And for small South Asian states, they are adopting hazing strategy to achieve geopolitical benefits from their neighboring states. And in this present geopolitical realities, as we know how we are, as a smaller South Asian nation, presenting to the world, and small South Asian states in South Asia can neither bandwagoning their neighbors, so they are on a strategic position to achieve the opportunities through economic and trading, all those opportunities. And Nepal, as a landlocked state, sharing open border with China and India, with small economy, has a huge potentiality of energy, hydro power, and can be a rising energy power provider for whole South Asian region. Nepal still till 2017 was going through under a severe energy crisis, and now have become an energy trading nation. Recently, it has signed energy trading MOE with Bangladesh, and likewise we can do the similar energy trading MOE with other South Asian states also. This could be an example for small South Asian states that through soft power we can achieve this changing multipolar world. And likewise, Nepal, unlike any other country in the region, maintains open borders with India and a visa on arrival for almost everyone, and carries a political culture that has never weaponized mobility. It is one South Asian capital where a Pakistani, a Bangladeshi, an Indian, a Sri Lankan, and a Bhutanese can still at the same table without navigating embassies, security clearance are month of paperwork, but openness along won't have Nepal very far. A country can welcome everyone, but it still needs institutional confidence that a region can trust and the politics that don't wobble with the every season. If Nepal steals itself, it can offer the region a place where things can actually discussed and done. Nepal's openness is a geo-century asset. Likewise, we have, as a small state nation, we have a very good relation with US and with European Union also. Recently, MCC Millennium Challenge goal has been signed with US, and as we all know, BRI, Belt and Road Initiative with China, is also in a full phase going on. And at the end, I want to end up this thought that all the smaller South Asian states are in such a state that we neither can change our neighbor, but we need to have a strategic position that we can achieve a most out of that. We can achieve most out of that. Thank you so much for providing me such a nice platform through the Pakistani embassy. And as a very young scholar, and I'm a little bit nervous that it's my first time in such a conclave as a scholar. Before I have presented my papers in conferences, and this kind of program is first of its kind, and hope everyone will consider it this kind. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shilata. That was too quick. So our Ambassador Zamir Akram would have more time to speak as well. Thank you, Dr. Shilata. You mentioned about the weaponization of mobility. I think there is also a trend of weaponization of resources as well within South Asia. We should need to discourage that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, our second speaker of today's session is Ambassador Zamir Akram. Ambassador Zamir Akram is former Pakistani diplomat with long-standing expertise in multilateral negotiations, strategic affairs, and global security. He served as Pakistan's permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva. Ambassador Zamir Akram, you have the floor.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and good morning. As usual, it's an honor to be here at the Institute of Strategic Studies, and I'm grateful to Sohail and Ambassador Khalid Mahmood for giving me this honor. After the presentation by General Zubair, I think very little can be said, but I've been asked to focus on two specific areas, and that is, what are the opportunities and the vulnerabilities that the presence of global powers present for strategic stability in South Asia? Now, it's easier to talk about the vulnerabilities because they are quite obvious, but rather difficult to search for the opportunities because at the moment, if there are such opportunities, they are really potential opportunities. So first, let me recall, of course, the importance that South Asia plays. This is a region that's not really in the headlines of our international politics, but it has always been a very important geopolitical part of the global environment, and particularly the security environment, owing to its large landmass and also owing to its maritime crossroads for centuries. And it is also now, if you put China together in South Asia, but even without China, it is the highest concentration of humanity in the world today. And therefore, it can also be potentially the largest market in the world today. Historically, South Asia was, as we know, the British nostalgically called the crown, the jewel in the British crown. It has also been the area where the Russian and British empires competed for the warm waters, and this was therefore a part of the great game. During the Cold War, it was known as the area which is when this very famous book that was written about the Cold War on the periphery, basically an analysis of the American and Soviet involvement in South Asia on either the Pakistani or the Indian side. And then it was also the last great battleground of the Cold War that was fought in Afghanistan, leading to the eventual disintegration and collapse of the Soviet Union. In the post-Cold War world, it has become an area of competition between three major powers. We have talked about the G2, the US and China, but I think we cannot discount Russia in this environment, because Russia still plays a very important role. In particular, if we needed any reminder about this, the visit by Mr. Putin to India next door underscores the role that Russia continues to play in South Asia. So this environment today has led to immense vulnerabilities that we are confronting in South Asia as a subcontinent. The great power competition between these three is accentuating and exacerbating the contradictions that have already existed in this region, in particular between Pakistan and India, and more so also between India and China. This is the consequence of the unipolar moment in history where the US has since then sought to maintain its global hegemony, and in that context has tried to prevent the emergence of any peer competitor, in particular China. And for that reason, it has engaged in a strategic partnership with India, and that partnership is aimed at the containment of China. This policy of containment of China has obviously created tensions within the region, because this is also a region which we need to remember, where is a place where there are three contiguous nuclear powers that share shared borders, and not only shared borders, but disputed borders. So these three, Pakistan, India, and China, are in a situation which has also been described as the strategic chain, and the chain involves the United States as well, especially because of the US-India strategic partnership. Now, for Pakistan, this Indo-US partnership presents, in my view, an existential threat, because the US has enabled not only India's growth in economic terms, in military and strategic terms, but has also encouraged the belligerence and even recklessness, I would say, by a Hindutva-driven, saffronized Indian polity, not just the RSS, BJP combined that leads the country, but also the impact that this saffronization has had on the Indian society as a whole, including the Indian armed forces. This is an extremely dangerous situation, which, in my view at least, presents a very critical existential threat for Pakistan dealing with India. At the same time, there are differences, territorial, as I mentioned, between China and the present Indian government. And although there has been some talk of a thaw, I don't believe that this is going to be a major transformational change because the root causes of the differences between India and China continue to remain. And this competition will continue to fester and create difficulties for security, for maintenance of security in this part of the world. It has been further accentuated by the American decision to create, or the decision to so-called pivot to Asia, creating the Quadrilateral Alliance and the AUKUS alliance between the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, to which the Chinese have responded by engaging in a strategic alliance with Russia, as well as by developing an alternative to this maritime competition in the Asia-Pacific region, or the Indian Ocean and Pacific Oceans, between the US-led Quadrilateral Alliance and Chinese shipping interests, by creating the Belt and Road Initiative, which is an overland alternative for China's access to the rest of the world. Needless to say, all these developments have so far retarded any kind of regional integration and cooperation between this subcontinent. Now, to turn to the more difficult question of the opportunities for South Asia, and which I said, as I said in the beginning, it's very difficult to answer that. But I would say that there are potentially openings, potentially there are opportunities. And this is something that General Zubair mentioned in his presentation, is because of the fact that the world is now multipolar. It is no longer bipolar or unipolar, but multipolar, with the United States, China, and Russia as the three major powers. And this multipolarity at the global level and at the regional level presents multiple options for the countries of South Asia. Hopefully, as time to come, this multilateralism will work towards the creation of a more stable international order. And if the international order emerges and becomes a more stable order, then yes, there are possibilities and opportunities. Now, one can be optimistic and think of the possibilities that we see under the Trump administration vis-a-vis American relations with both China and with Russia. With China, we saw the meeting between President Trump and President Xi in October, which at least in today's Wall Street Journal, which I was reading on the way here, describes as a seminal change in the relationship between the United States and China. It is a seminal change because implicitly, according to this analysis, the United States has recognized that China has now effectively overtaken the United States, and that it is now not just a peer competitor, but has surpassed the US in virtually every field, including in terms of technology, in terms of production, in terms of outreach and impact across the world. Now, if under the Trump administration, the US is able to shed its past policies towards towards China, which was containment, and actually embraces the policy of engagement with China, then there are possibilities of an improvement in the global and in our regional situation. At the same time, what we are seeing is an effort by Mr. Trump to resolve the crisis, the Ukraine war. And if he succeeds in doing that, there are good possibilities that Russian-American relations could also improve. And this overall geopolitical competition that we are witnessing, we have been witnessing for the last 2 decades, could be replaced by genuine multilateral, a genuinely cooperative multilateral international order. it's a tough, it's difficult to imagine it now. As I said, it's potentially possible. But if it is possible, then there are areas where we can be able to cooperate in South Asia. And these include areas such as rare earth minerals, renewable energy, and climate change, IT, and other emerging technologies. These are all areas where there can be greater cooperation and cooperation and collaboration between the countries of South Asia, which may help overcome our historical differences that are there. Now, to end, I put in a bit by myself, and that is, what are the choices for Pakistan? I think for Pakistan, what is very clearly needed at this time is absolute strategic clarity. We need to be very clear where we are going and what are we going to do. We need to be absolutely clear that in a geopolitical sense, there is a strategic convergence that has existed for decades between Pakistan and China, and that is irreplaceable. A lot of people talk in terms of Pakistan not putting all its eggs in one basket, which is the Chinese basket. My argument has always been there is only one basket, and that's the Chinese basket. Having said that, I do not want to undermine the opening that is possible with the United States. And I think that to the extent that we can work with the US, it would be all to the better. And I don't think the Pakistan-US relationship should be in competition with the Pakistan-China relationship. And that is where we need absolute clarity, as I said, because the clarity should be that we should not do anything in terms of our relations with the US that undermines our relationship with China, for the simple reason that, as I said, the relationship with China is based on a strategic convergence, and the relationship with the US, at best, is based on a tactical phase in our relationship. I've always believed personally that there has never been a strategic convergence between the US and Pakistan, but that's a separate issue. But as of now, there isn't such a relationship. At the same time, we must keep alive and pursue our engagement with the third great power, and that is Russia. I think that despite the historical relationship between Russia and India, the Russians are ready to pursue a balanced relationship with Pakistan as well. And there are many instances of that. I don't want to go extend into that at this time. But there are real opportunities, is what I want to say. And there are also opportunities bringing all these together. For instance, there is the China Belt and Road Initiative, extended into Pakistan as CPEC, and then a broader geopolitical relationship with the rest of Central Asia and on to Europe. There is the Russian North-South corridor, again, a geopolitical project that is beneficial to Pakistan. And then, although Pakistan is not a part of it, but it can be if the US wants, and that is the IMEC and the I2U2. These are all projects that can be helpful to this region and can also be helpful to Pakistan going forward. I want to end on the note that we must also, as a country, take initiatives to promote our own regional cooperation. I think that for the foreseeable future, SAARC as an organization will remain dormant as long as the Indians continue to maintain their unreasonable position. But that does not stop Pakistan from entering into bilateral and trilateral or even multilateral arrangements with regional countries. The example of Pakistan, China, Bangladesh was given. The example of Pakistan, China, Afghanistan is also there, although that is a bit difficult at the present time. But in any case, if you look at the longer term, Afghan interests coincide with those of Pakistan and China. And then we can use Pakistan's position. A lot of people, I myself included, feel concerned that with the instability with Afghanistan, our access to Central Asia has been put into jeopardy. But there is another route, of course, and that is the quadrilateral transit trade agreement that involves trading through China with Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. And that project can be enhanced as an alternative to regional connectivity until the Afghan situation stabilizes. So there are opportunities that Pakistan should take, and it should pursue a more proactive policy in trying to do so. I think I'll end over there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the comprehensive talk. Ambassador Zamir Akram has mentioned several vulnerabilities as well as opportunities for South Asia as well as for Pakistan specifically. And he mentioned whether we need to have a strategic clarity regarding the technical cooperation and understanding of a strategic partnership. And we will discuss about that in Q&A session as well. Our third speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is online. Professor Huang Yong-sing is the Associate Dean at the School of International Studies at Sichuan University, China, and also serves as Deputy Director of the university's Institute of South Asian Studies. Professor Huang Yong-sing, can you hear me?
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. So please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So friends and colleagues, distinguished guests, it's indeed a great honor and privilege for me to participate in this great event. My sincere gratitude goes to the ISSI for the kind invitation. While we gather here today at a pivotal point in global history, we see, unfortunately, a crippling security, development, and architectural deficit in South Asia. This is a syndrome of development lag, security imbalance, and connectivity failure. The introduction of a dozen of new geoeconomic initiatives, most prominently the BRI and the CPEC, emerges as the critical variable aiming to break this debilitating cycle. But the central question is, does these geoeconomic intervention merely offset existing risks, or does it introduce a host of new security variables that further complicate an already fragile order? The impact is complex, one of opportunity mixed with risk, and the cooperation interwoven with confrontation. This is the core complex or paradox our discussion must confront. The relationship between economic connectivity and regional stability in South Asia is not a linear equation. It is a dynamic, dual interaction dilemma. We must move beyond the simplistic notion that one determines the other and analyze the two-way street of constraint and opportunity. Geoeconomic initiatives can be treated as an order supplement, bridging deficits and mitigating threats. Some new geoeconomic initiatives enter the South Asian space with a clear corrective logic to address the underlying cause of instability that traditional security frameworks have failed to resolve. The transnational terrorism exploits civil unrest and economic grievances. Infrastructure projects are not just commercial ventures in this regard. They are direct attacks on poverty and on employment. By catalyzing economic growth, they reduce the fertile ground for extremism and radicalization, offering a crucial patch to the security deficit that military containment alone cannot achieve. This is so far the China's experience. It is emphasized that there's growing specter of non-traditional threats like climate change and food insecurity. Geoeconomic initiatives through investment such as in clean energy infrastructure, disaster resilience, and connectivity, and regional water management systems drive pragmatic cooperation in the area where all nations share an existential interest. This creates a foundation for resilient security, a shared framework for survival that transcends political and military rivalry. The very flow of people, goods, technology enables by economic corridors necessitates joint action on issues like cross-border customs, coordinated regulation, and counter-smuggling intelligence. These operational necessities create a low politics platform for technical cooperation, offering an objective mechanism to break the deep-seated pattern of security isolation. Second, geoeconomic initiatives can also be treated as an order disruptor, which intensifies disputes and risks. Paradoxically, the very act of seeking integration can become a flashpoint for renewed conflict, a phenomenon driven by the region's established security authorities. When a cross-border economic corridor traverses or approaches sensitive territorial lines, the economic project is immediately subject to the securitization and politicization by concerned regional powers. The regional connectivity has become more focal point of contention than a basis for collaboration, as pointed out by the concept. India's persistent rejection of CPEC, viewing it as a geopolitical tool, exemplifies this mindset. This approach converts infrastructure into an existential threat, solidifying the very confrontation it was meant to address or bypass. The push for regional economic influence, particularly in the Indian Ocean region, risks attracting and intensifying great power rivalry, of course. It is highlighted that given the militarization and nuclearization of the Indian Ocean, the geoeconomic platform risks being converted into a security competition arena. This external intervention is perceived to further compromise South Asia's strategic stability and autonomy, making the regional security architecture more fragile, not less. If geoeconomic initiatives fail to adopt truly inclusive, equitable models, if they exacerbate uneven national development or fail to manage domestic resource allocation transparently, they can deepen internal social economic divides. This can lead to local conflicts and renewed social unrest, effectively turning a development opportunity into a domestic security risk, particularly in states where weak governance structures. Third, geoeconomic initiatives can also be regarded as order reconstruction potential under a multipolar system. The global shift towards multipolarity, as well as the return of China and the rise of the global South, offer a unique opportunity to transcend the South Asian zero-sum game. From military to development security, the foundational challenge is cognitive. we must substitute the traditional military security concept with a development security concept. The core value of geoeconomic initiatives is proving that security and development are indivisible. This perspective reframes collaboration not as a concession, but as a pragmatic necessity for collective survival and development, steering the region from antagonistic security towards cooperative security. It is also suggested that we should explore variable geometric shapes for regional cooperation. Geoeconomic platforms such as CPEC's extension to Central Asia and sub-regional forums offer a crucial incremental platform. They can bypass the political paralysis of SAR, allowing cooperation to proceed through flexible, sector-specific, and bilateral, plus small multilateral forms. This gradual accumulation of functional interdependence can then refeed the broader regional security order with trust. By integrating South Asia geoeconomic initiatives into the broader agenda of the Global South, I think the region can collectively enhance its leverage and bargaining power within the global economic system. This emphasis on collective agency enhances the region's self-reliance and stability, making it less susceptible to external security dictates. I think there are several imperatives of security economic symbiosis. We must decisively break through the paralyzing two-dimensional thinking that views geoeconomics as either solely determined by security or solely constrained by it. South Asia's uniqueness is precisely this. The security deficit restrains economic development, and the economic lag exacerbates security risks. The new geoeconomic initiatives are valuable not for eliminating one factor, but for constructing a symbiotic relationship. Economic connectivity provides the material foundation for mutual trust, and the security cooperation offers the institutional guarantee for economic projects. They must form a virtuous cycle instead of a vicious cycle. So we also we should be, aware of this securitization trap. The practice of over-securitization, of geoeconomic initiatives, labeling a logistic network an existential threat is some kind of addiction to the path dependence of the traditional security order. This zero-sum framework is a trap we should avoid. It leads to a double loss, foregoing economic opportunity while simultaneously increasing regional fragmentation. South Asian nations must view economic cooperation not as an amplifier of security threats, but as a litmus test of mutual trust between each other. So, to conclude, I think there is a way lying before us from antagonism to co-creation. The impact of new geoeconomic initiatives on South Asia's security order is essentially one of reconstruction, not necessarily revolution. They are neither an intrinsic security facilitator nor an inevitable conflict generator. The outcome really hinges or entirely hinges on the choices of regional states make, whether they break the security economic dichotomy and translate economic connectivity into foundational trust and development gains into security resilience. The challenge is move from antagonism to co-creation. I would suggest three, action plans for our colleagues to sleep on. First, at institutional level, we should establish geo-economic security coordination. For major sensitive cross-border projects, we must institute crisis management and risk mitigation mechanism. This is a critical and technical step to ensure economic disputes of a cost of a debt or resource sharing are structurally prevented from escalating into political or security conflicts. At interest level, I think we should universalize benefits and narrow gaps. The geo-economic initiatives must be genuinely inclusive and broadly beneficial. Through focused industrial capacity cooperation and the technology transfer happening between Pakistan and China, we must actively narrow the development gaps between nations and various groups within nations, fulfilling the goals of reducing poverty and promoting balanced development. At the cognitive level, we must resolutely discard the block-based mentality. Initiatives like CPAC are designed to be inclusive, regional public goods, open to all South Asian nations on the principle of consultation, contribution, and shared benefits. Partner states of BRI need to maintain and promote it as non-exclusive and beneficial to all groups of people. In sum, the geo-economic initiatives are not risk-free. Their success depends very heavily on conflict-sensitive planning, inclusive governance, and transparent communication. This is the only path to a stable, prosperous South Asia, one defined by a synergistic security, economy, and connectivity triad. Thank you. I will wrap up here.
Thank you, Professor Huan Yung Song. You have finished your speech exactly within 10 minutes. So thank you so much for the time management. And also you highlighted several important points. You mentioned about that we should come out of this securitization trap. Rather, we should view the geoeconomic initiatives as inclusive, part of the inclusivity and inclusive development. You also mentioned about that there should be the construct of the securitization should also be changed and replaced basically from the cooperative, from the traditional security to cooperative security. So, and you proposed the geoeconomic security coordination, which is quite viable policy recommendation that we can work on as well. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Ambassador Imran Ahmed Siddiqui. Ambassador Imran Ahmed Siddiqui is a senior Pakistani diplomat. He served as Pakistan's High Commissioner in Bangladesh and now serving as Additional Foreign Secretary for the Asia Pacific at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Pakistan. Ambassador Siddiqui, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank ISSI for organizing this very productive, very useful conclave and for selecting a theme for this panel, which is both timely and relevant. South Asia's security landscape is defined by many challenges, such as historical conflicts, imbalanced military capabilities, conflicting strategic ambitions, and deepening mistrust. All this is embedded in a transforming global order and emerging non-traditional threats, including climate crisis, cyber risks, transnational organized crimes, and the impact of emerging technologies. Despite being home to over 1/4 of humanity, the region remains near the bottom in human development. Economic integration remains weak, illustrated by low intra-regional trade, while SAARC, the platform for cooperation, has remained largely inert for the past decades. SAARC's inertia is not merely due to institutional limitations, but largely for politicization of processes. In this situation, the question arises, whether there is a need to reimagine regional cooperation, particularly on issues such as poverty alleviation, climate change, and technological progress. This can be done in partnership with those who have the capacity and also goodwill in the region. In the security sphere, South Asia constitutes the planet's dense nuclear theaters. Doctrinal innovations, some destabilizing in essence, further strain a precarious strategic equilibrium. Unresolved disputes, particularly Jammu and Kashmir, function as ever-present catalyst for friction. As far back as 13th of August 1948, the UN Commission on India and Pakistan had underscored the urgency for addressing the situation between Pakistan and India. It recognized that only by resolving the outstanding issues, particularly Jammu and Kashmir, could a final and lasting settlement be achieved. More than 7 decades later, this insight remains relevant. Ladies and gentlemen, in the past 7 decades, Pakistan's stance on regional security has been consistent. We believe that security must be indivisible. Core disputes threatening regional stability require resolution, and mutual restraint with arms control is essential. Pakistan does not seek extra regional influence, nor does it aspire to dominate its neighbors or exert control in the Indian Ocean region. Our military doctrines are purposefully designed to support cooperative security. At the same time, Pakistan opposes the designation of any one country in the region as a net security provider, as it reinforces a sense of entitlement to building military strength far beyond legitimate defense needs. Such a posture fuels competitive militarization and heightens regional instability. Moreover, the very concept contradicts the UN principle of equal and undiminished security for all states, ultimately undermining the efforts to establish a balanced and cooperative regional security framework. A formal security architecture in South Asia is important for the region, which is marked by historical conflicts, mistrust, and strategic instability. The possibility of a conflict is ever present. Stability can only be ensured through dialogue, transparency, and mutual restraint. In our view, any durable security framework in the region must incorporate following core elements: respect for the principle of equal and undiminished security for all states, adherence to the UN Charter and international law, with disputes resolved peacefully in accordance with these norms, establishment of institutionalized dialogue to address threat perceptions, confidence-building measures, and arms control arrangements, effective functioning of crisis management mechanisms, and collaboration on non-traditional security challenges, especially climate resilience, water governance, health security, and cooperative efforts aimed at advancing sustainable development across the region. Ladies and gentlemen, despite its clear rationale, the creation of such a framework faces several impediments: long-standing mistrust, unilateral approaches to regional questions, and the politicization of security narratives hinder even minimal consensus. Due to obstructive behavior of one country, South Asia lacks a neutral and inclusive forum devoted specifically to security issues. Major power competition in the Indian Ocean and the increasing securitization of economic and technological domains further complicate the region's strategic calculus. The 1999 Lahore Memorandum of Understanding between Pakistan and India had provided a meaningful platform for doctrinal transparency and mutual reassurance, grounded in the recognition that military dominance between two nuclear states is neither achievable nor wise. Despite this, India has resisted arms control initiatives with Pakistan, citing extra-regional threats and the need for unconstrained military capacity, an argument that warrants closer examination. In practice, more than two-thirds of India's military posture remains oriented towards Pakistan. Still, targeted measures such as a mutual commitment to forego the deployment of anti-ballistic missile system could enhance strategic stability without impeding India's ability to address broader security concerns. These steps may help lay the groundwork for a durable and balanced regional security architecture. Ladies and gentlemen, the path to enduring peace in South Asia is not simple. It requires courage to address historical grievances, the political will to embrace dialogue over confrontation, determination to avoid extremist ideologies, and adopt the vision to prioritize shared prosperity over regional dominance. Let us remember that security, development, and stability are inseparable. By choosing cooperation, transparency, and dialogue, South Asia can transform its narrative from one of perpetual tension to a future defined by trust, resilience, and shared opportunity for all its peoples. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Imran Siddiqui, for your talk. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will have a Q&A session. So this would be a two-way traffic. I would request all of you to please, whatever your question or comment is, it should not be converted into a mini speech. Rather, it should be very precise, to the point. And if you want to ask any question, you please introduce yourself and also point out to the speaker whom you want to ask the question. So what we will do is we'll take 2 rounds of questions. So in the first round, we'll ask the front rows, and in the second round, we will encourage the young participants in the back seat for their Q&A questions as well. So first in the front row, if anyone is there, just that gentleman, please.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Rukab Malik. I am a professor at NUST. My question is directed to General Hayat and Ambassador Zaki Akram. In recent months, Islamabad's relationship with Iran has taken a very positive turn. What is the possibility of enhancing ties and this relationship along mutually beneficial avenues in economic and strategic realms? And this is especially in reflection to what you were talking about in regards to Central Asian access and expansion of the Saudi-Pakistan strategic alliance to include Iran and maybe other countries. What is the possibility of that, to enlarge that also to General Hayat?
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else from the front rows? Ji, Ambassador Shah Jamal.
Wish to thank all the speakers for excellent presentation. I'm really impressed with the lucidity and clarity of our Chinese professor. So I would like to take the advantage of this talk to ask him that CPAC is really a defining thing for Pakistan and for the region. But what we see is that there are lots of impediments. One impediment is the security of Chinese in Pakistan. What other impediments are there which you would like to highlight, which we need to improve on the Pakistani side to accelerate the second phase of the CPAC? Thank you.
Thank you. Mateen Adar, sir.
Thank you. So my question is to my friend Ambassador Siddiqui Saab, since you look after Asia. So security, economy, climate, and connectivity. We have seen in May huge clash between India and Pakistan. Afterwards, there is no progress. Both countries are not talking. Mainly, definitely, India is not ready to talk. So all issues are impending. Either it is Indus Water Treaty, or terrorism, or Jammu and Kashmir. So keeping in view these all pending issues, what is the future of ties between Pakistan and India? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mateen Saab. Sir, we have 3 questions so far. So the first question was directed to General Zubair Mahmood Hayat and Ambassador Zamir Akram. So if you could please respond. So Ambassador Zamir.
Thank you. Well, there are 2 parts to the question. First is about Pakistan-Iran relations, and I think that is something that is moving in a positive trajectory. In recent past, there have been several levels of exchanges between the two countries. So this is an area where I think there is a great deal of opportunity, and I see further improvement in bilateral relations. The Iranian experience in the Israeli-Iran crisis, and then, of course, the situation in Afghanistan that poses a threat to both the Pakistan and Iran are areas where we can further build on our relationship. Iranian involvement in the Pakistan-Saudi Defense Pact, I think for the moment does not seem a possibility for me, quite honestly. I think there has to be further improvement in Iranian-Saudi relations. Fortunately, there is a movement in that direction, but it would take some time for that to crystallize into a sort of a regional pact or alliance. Now, having said that, we take note in Pakistan that our foreign minister has expressed at least that several countries are interested in joining this kind of arrangement, the security arrangement. And it's also a positive fact that the Iranian president has himself welcomed the creation or the conclusion of this defense pact between Saudi Arabia and. So eventually, if we are going to move in the direction of some kind of regional security arrangement, that is, at least in principle, something that Pakistan would be willing to go along with and would actually welcome if it enhances the security of the region as a whole, particularly on both sides of the Persian Gulf. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I personally believe that when you look at Pakistan-Iran context, you probably need to look at three contexts. One is the political context, one is the strategic context, and one is the military context. Politically, there was a paradigm that existed in the Shah regime time. And then there has been a context that has been there since the revolution time, 79. I personally believe both these contexts are now historical in nature. So the best way to look at that political context is to now develop a new political context, which goes beyond those traditional security, the political contexts that I'm talking about. The second is the strategic context. In the strategic context, Pakistan has never been a threat to Iran. In the strategic context, except for a little export of ideology, Iran has probably never been a direct threat to Pakistan. So strategically speaking, as the world moves into a new strategic realm, I think there are more strategic opportunities that are opening up. And I think apart from pragmatism, even in the realism domain, there are opportunities in the strategic domains that can be realistically explored. Now coming to the third and final, which is the military aspect. In the traditional sense, and I give you no secret now because now part of the history, during Shah time, there was a military contingency of Iran providing military forces to Pakistan in the context of Pakistan being attacked. In quantity, in ground, in air, and naval. I mean, this is something you can read in the books. Obviously, that's not been the case for the last 45 years. You've raised a very important point about the strategic mutual defense agreement between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia and whether that can be expanded or not. I think politics is an art of possibilities. As the region dynamics change, so could be the wiring between them, there could be re-altered. So I will neither close the door nor considered it open, I will feel that there is work to be done, but there are bases on which this can be done. Thank you.
Thank you. The second question was, thank you. The second question was pointed out to a Chinese professor, Dr. Huang Yusong, by Ambassador Shah Jamal regarding the CPEC and the impediments, especially the external impediments. So, Professor, if you could please respond.
Yes, am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. That's a very good question. I think to propel the CPEC Phase 2 forward sustainably, I think our friend, Pakistan's side, should prioritize targeted improvements that directly address the project's most pressing security and economic vulnerabilities. Two pillars, very critical to unlocking its full potential. So firstly, I think on the security front, strengthening project-specific security frameworks is imperative. While Pakistan has established dedicated security forces for CPEC, expanding their mandate to cover last-mile infrastructure and industrial zones in restrictive regions will reduce risks of sabotage and logistical disruptions considerably. I think equally important is enhancing intelligence sharing between federal, provincial, and local security agencies to preempt threats alongside community engagement programs. I think that this is very important. On the second point I would like to touch upon is, let's work together to address economic challenges that requires structural reforms to improve project viability and investor certainty. One key area is streamlining regulatory and bureaucratic efficiency, such as to reduce red tape for land acquisition, environmental clearances, and cross-border trade will cut project timelines and lower transaction costs. I think our partner can work in this regard and prioritize energy sector stability, resolving the circular debt issues in the power industry, and investing in grid modernization to ensure reliable electricity supply for CPEC industrial zones. This is the second point. The third point I would like to point out is that we should work together to bridge institutional and capacity gaps. This will reinforce economic resilience on Pakistan's side. Investing in technical and vocational training programs aligned with the Phase 2 focus, for instance, digital skills for IT parks, agri-tech expertise for agricultural cooperation zones, will address the skilled labor shortage, ensuring local workforce integration and reduce reliance on foreign talents. This is something that came into my mind when I heard this question. Finally, I think leveraging regional connectivity synergies can turn economic challenges into opportunities. On this front, we should really work together. These improvements rooted in addressing security vulnerabilities and strengthening economic fundamentals will not only accelerate CPEC Phase 2, but also ensure its benefits are really inclusive, sustainable, and resilient to internal and external shocks, solidifying the strategic and economic dividends of China-Pakistan partnership and friendship. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment on what the professor has said. I fully take the point about security for CPEC. That's a point on which Pakistan has been more than acutely aware. And Pakistan has done more than any other country in the world has done to try and protect and secure this CPEC. It has raised two divisional size forces unheard of in human history to protect an economic corridor to raise to division. I find no parallel in human history for what Pakistan has done. No Pakistani will ever attack the Chinese. They are our iron brothers. They can roam around anywhere safe and free. There has never been an attack on China before CPAC. After all, this was the same Pakistan. So the turning point is the CPAC. Somebody has felt threatened enough to go beyond the degree to directly attack China inside Pakistan. If we anchor CPAC from a prism of security, then the grand strategic and strategic dimension of it will get diluted. We will do anything and everything possible humanly to guard, protect, even at the cost of our. Having said that, there are forces out there of which the professor is very well aware of, who are hell-bent upon using all instruments to disrupt CPAC. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The last question was directed to Ambassador Siddiqui by Mateen Haider. I hope Mateen Haider will not make headlines out of his remarks. So over to you.
Well, thank you very much for this question. Traditionally, Pakistan-India relationship has been overshadowed by the bilateral conflicts between the two states. On major part, Jammu and Kashmir dispute. But in the last few years, we have seen the tendency on the part of India. So in the last few years, we have seen a tendency on the part of India to make Pakistan a domestic political agenda. And that makes things very difficult for states when they make a country and the strategic relationship and security relationship with another country, particularly a neighboring state, to resolve bilateral issues. Maybe this is a strategy not to resolve bilateral issues. But again, it has been established in the past and in recent past also that Pakistan cannot be dominated militarily. So, and we are not going to abandon our core issues, the support for the suppressed Kashmiri people. That has been, this dispute has international personality. It has been recognized by the United Nations Security Council also. So the only way to resolve disputes and the issues that you mentioned is through dialogue. It has been our consistent position that we want to start a composite dialogue, a comprehensive dialogue with India on all issues of concern. This is not useful, and this is not only the way to resolve issues, but also it is useful to restrict the domains of the existing conflicts. This is not happening. One state is not willing to have any kind of dialogue with Pakistan. It is consistently basically using aggressive language against Pakistan and Pakistani territories. The in the occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the reign of terror continues. So what is the option? Is there any other option if the two countries are not agreeing on any framework for dialogue? Then again, international law, particularly UN Charter, provides us a dimension, a way, and that is that international community, including the UN Security Council, to step up its efforts to not only resolve the disputes, but also create a favorable, a fertile ground where useful conversation, useful dialogue can take place. So third-party participation would be the only way that they step up their efforts. They come to the region, they discuss the dimensions of the issues, the positions, and help the two states find a way to find the solution of their bilateral issues. In the what will happen in future, the thing is this: we are very reasonable. We are calling for dialogue consistently. What happens in the future now depends on Indian basically intentions and the positions that they take. The ball is in their court. We have our leadership. I mean, even after Pahalgam attack, the Prime Minister of Pakistan had offered them, joint and verifiable investigation, which they rejected. So if there is no peaceful way and they are clamoring for something that is not, acceptable in international law and otherwise, then the world has to to see it as a potential for their own efforts to bring the two sides together in a dialogue that is both useful and not only useful for the regional stability and security, but also international security and stability. We should not forget that the two countries are nuclear states, and this basically ends the argument that one country can dominate the other country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now there will be a quick two questions by the Gen Z because we have just 10 minutes. Yeah, backside. ये पीछे पीछे बिल्कुल वो ग्लासेस वाले
Thank you. I am Muhammad Zafar Iqbal from International Islamic University, Islamabad. My question is to Honorable Ambassador Zamir Akram. Sir, as we listen this thing from various policy experts, that Pakistan should balance its relations with three major global powers, the US, China, and Russia. So what are the opportunities, as you mentioned that Russia is ready to balance its relations with India and Pakistan, while on the other hand, there are a lot of sanctions on Russia. Thank you.
Thank you. ये आगे दे दें इनको.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, my name is Abid Hassan. I'm student of international relation at International Islamic University. Sir, my question is about General Zubair Mahmoodayat. Sir, this is about security. So my question is about strategic chain that comes from US, China, India, and Pakistan. In this regard, anything done by United States is feared by China and vice versa also. Anything done by China is considered a threat in India, while Pakistan as a small state is affected by this chain. Do you think that in such type of dynamics that is emerging in security domain, or even we witnessed that two security architecture led by United States and China with collaboration of Russia as well? So my question is about, sir, do you think as if Pakistan puts all its reliance on China, then what would be the outlook of strategic hedging and strategic autonomy to navigate its complex security issue in future?
Thank you. I think both questions are directed to Ambassador Zamir, and more or less they are overlapping in the terms of that whether about the balancing of relationship between the three major powers. So, sir, if you could please respond to that question. Ambassador Zamir Akram. Yes.
Well, there is no doubt about the fact that it's extremely difficult to balance relations between any two countries, let alone three countries. So it's obviously going to be a very difficult balancing act. But I think that in the past, we have a good example of Pakistan being able to do this in terms of balancing relations between US and China, even at the time when the China-US relationship was very adversarial. Now, I see an opportunity, it's a potential improvement, or at least a potential agreement between China and the United States to work together. While their differences may remain, they will probably look for ways, as long as Mr. Trump continues to pursue this policy, and there's always any chance that he may change it. But as of now, the possibilities are that the US and China have agreed to work together on issues on which their interests coincide and set aside their differences. And this is very clearly that has emerged from the meeting that took place between President Xi and President Trump. As far as Russia is concerned, I think a lot hinges on how the Ukraine war is resolved. I think it will be resolved sooner than later, because now even the Western countries, the European countries have come around to accepting the fact that a solution is necessary. On what terms, we have to see. Most likely it will be on Russia's terms. So I think that with this kind of these developments taking place at the global stage, it will become easier for Pakistan to pursue balanced relations with all the three powers. Now, having said that, I just want to repeat what I said in my presentation, that we should never forget sight of the fact that there is only one power, and that is China, with which we have a strategic convergence in terms of our own security environment. What I mean is with regard to India. So that strategic convergence is then responsible for a whole range of activity, engagement, and relationships that are very deep between Pakistan and China and stretch back for several decades. So we have to understand that many of the things that we require as a developing country in terms of nuclear power, in terms of defense buildup, in terms of economic infrastructure development, energy sector, whatever you want to look at, the assistance and cooperation that is available and possible is only with China. That's the reality of life. And therefore, we need to be very realistic in terms of pursuing our relations with China. That kind of answers the second question as well, because my conviction, this is my view, is that Pakistan's going forward, Pakistan's strategic convergence is essentially with China. That does not mean that we should ignore relations with other powers, but we should not do anything that undermines our relations with China. And we heard the speaker from China underscore some of the critical issues that we need to address, and General Zubair has also spoken about the need, the consciousness that we have about addressing issues about security and the issues that outside players, and it's no prizes for guessing who those outside players are, who are undermining CPEC and the Pakistan-China relationship.
Yes. Since the Gen Z had named me by name, so I need to intervene. The way you have framed the question gives me an impression that you have bought that argument that because India thinks it is in competition with China, and because China has a link with the USA, and therefore this is a more complex problem. If you frame the question like this, you are giving India a pass. You are hiding India's real intent. You are providing a cover to what is exactly the reality of India. It is India that doesn't want to settle with Pakistan and not the other way around, and there is no connection of it to either China or to the USA. Please have strategic clarity on that account. It was General Ayub who offered a joint defense to India. Pakistan offered a no-war pact to India. In fact, documents were exchanged for that no-war pact. Pakistan offered a nuclear-free South Asia to India. Pakistan offered a strategic restraint regime 3 times to India. And you are aware of General Musharraf's famous 4-point formula that he offered for the resolution of the core dispute. I've given you 5 fundamental pillars in 78 years in which Pakistan has made sincere efforts to try and create a paradigm of some kind of stability and peace on the basis of sovereign equality. By obscuring this in a bigger equation, all these 5 foundations which India has rejected and wants to create a new normal and a new abnormal and a new dominance and a new security provider, you open the door for those things. So the ball is squarely in India's court. It is India which is the elephant in the room.
Thank you, sir. Professor Huang Yongsong, if you want to have final words in less than 1 minute. Professor Huang Yongsong?
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible now.
Thank you very much for giving me 1 minute to extend my profound gratitude to Pakistan, our great partner, ally, for its unwavering efforts in safeguarding CPEC, Chinese personnel, and Chinese invested projects. I think these endeavors lay the bedrock for Phase 2's progress. CPEC is more than a bilateral initiative. It is a litmus test for geoeconomic success in South Asia, where security and development deficits have long plagued the region. Neither China nor Pakistan can bear the consequences of failure, as this would embolden external forces and actors to spoil, to undermine stability and prosperity for self-interest. As all-weather strategic partners, our imperative, I think, is to deepen our cooperation in the days to come, reinforcing project-specific security frameworks, streamlining regulatory efficiency, bridging capacity gaps, and leveraging regional connectivity. And I think by forging a security economic symbiosis, we will not only accelerate CPEC's second phase, but also redefine the stability through co-creation, making CPEC a model of inclusive, resilient development that benefits both nations and the broader region. And in this regard, I'm very upbeat. I'm very hopeful that we will secure the final success. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Ambassador Tahmina Janjua. Okay.
You are audible.
Sorry, I shouldn't prolong this session, but I have a quick comment to make with regard to people who say dialogue with India. And General Zubair is here, and therefore I think it's important for everyone to know who doesn't know that there was a conversation that was to take place at the Oxford Union with 3 people from Pakistan, General Zubair, Hina Rabbani Khar, and our High Commissioner in London. There were 3 people supposed to come from, who had confirmed, supposed to come from India. Their former army chief, Subramaniam Swan, and the third one. Anyway, yeah. And yes. And they just withdrew at the last minute. So it just shows how much dialogue they're willing to do with Pakistan, and that there is obviously no desire on their part for that dialogue or strategic stability, if I may say so, to remain. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shilata Pokhrel, if you have any final words to say.
Thank you. Such an insightful session. And I in a final words, I would like to say that a small South Asian nation like Nepal, Bhutan, they are struggling with their internal issues. Uh, we are we are going to hold elections soon, and in this changing scenario, for us to act as a uh, act in our foreign policy, we are just focusing on in our political stability. So being a small state, it's very necessary for a state like Nepal to have a strong political stability, to have some clear vision in diplomacy and international relation. So at the end of the day, it's we cannot change neighbor. So we are trying our best to have some reasonable solution with the neighbors, and so that we can have a mutual partnership with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Imran, if you have final words.
Sir, just one comment on. I mean, there is no other way but dialogue to resolve bilateral issues. But if dialogue is not happening, then we should work for the regional cooperation, the cooperative mechanisms which are working in the region. One state is not allowing that, the only platform in the region for regional cooperation to work. So what is the choice for the member states who want to come together and strengthen their, relationship with or without a country that is hindering it? There are states around, and there are, major powers basically around this region, which are very much interested in establishing a close partnership with the regional states without any discrimination on issues which are very important for this region, the sustainable development goals which we all are lagging behind. This region in poverty, indicators, in terms of poverty indicators, health indicators, and otherwise is worse than many other poor and underdeveloped regions of the world. So the thing is this, that if there is a willingness, on the part of the countries which are on the sidelines of this region, basically in the neighborhood of this region, why not we accept their offer of support and cooperation and reimagine the partnerships within the region. We had a dialogue in a trilateral format with Bangladesh and China, and we found a lot of willingness on the part of the two other countries which were around the table to work on issues regarding poverty alleviation, climate resilience. I mean, the climate is becoming this region is the worst hit region in the world, by climate change. So there are issues on which we can work, and all the countries should be invited to work, from the region to states which are willing to extend any cooperation. So we have to think very innovatively about it and come up with the suggestions where we can revitalize almost dead or stalled, regional cooperation. That is very important. If nothing is happening on bilateral side, the regional cooperation, the regional platforms have to be revitalized with or without the countries which are obstructing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Imran. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the session, and I'll give you just 5 quick key takeaways of the session. The first point is basically highlighted by the Ambassador General Zubair Mahmood Hayat. And as John Galtung once coined the term of positive peace and negative peace. So if we actually rephrase this term into what General Zubair said, that the positive peace or security cannot be achieved alone, nor it can be imposed on the unilateral terms. Number 2, weaponization of resources or mobility should be discouraged collectively by all South Asian states. Number 3, for Pakistan, this was the point that highlighted by Ambassador Zamir. For Pakistan, strategic clarity is required between tactical cooperation as well as understanding of a strategic partnership that we have with China. The fourth point is about that was highlighted by a Chinese professor regarding the construct of security that we have in South Asia, that we need to construct the security and replace it from the traditional lenses to cooperative security or the comprehensive security, which is the new thing actually in international politics. Last point, the fifth point, last but not the least, I think there was a consensus among all speakers that the extremist ideologies are fundamental impediments in achieving a cohesive regional security architecture. So these were the five key takeaways. Now I request the chairman BOG, Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, to please come and present mementos to our keynote speaker and speakers. So I request Ambassador Khalid Mahmood to join us. General Zubair Mahmood Hayat, and Director General, of course. Sir. Sir. Dr. Shilata Pokhrel. Ambassador Zamir Akram. Short. Sir. Ambassador Imran Ahmed Siddiqui. Now I request Team India Study Center to join us for a group photo with the panelists, of course. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now the lunch is served downstairs, and we will come back again at 2 o'clock sharp. Professor Yongsong, thank you so much for joining us online.
It's my pleasure and honor. Hope to join you soon.